Hello and welcome to another DNSRF video. Today we're going to be talking about abuse detection and resolution times using the DAP.LIVE platform. My name's Nathan Allen. Hi, welcome. Today I'm joined with Mark Robertshaw, the CTO of the DNS Research Federation. And today we're going to be going over some of the abuse data that we have on the DAP.LIVE platform. So Mark, first of all, why is it important to measure detection and resolution times for abuse data?
Well, as a DNS Research Federation, we're committed to see improvement in the internet landscape, and that includes improvements in rates of abuse. And we all know as consumers how much of a problem it is to receive phishing emails and text messages on almost a daily basis, and one of our aims is to try and mitigate that and see that improve. So one way of inspecting that problem is to look at the rates in which we can detect abuse, and also having detected abuse, the way in which we can then subsequently resolve the abuse and quickly remove problems from the internet.
Excellent. And what types of abuse data does DAP.LIVE currently have available?
So we've got quite a wide range of data at the moment. We've got some phishing data, some malware data, some spam data, some scam data, and other types of abuse data as well. We've got quite a rich set of data on the platform at this point.
Excellent. And for today's presentation, we're going to use phishing as an example to demonstrate the use of DAP.LIVE for analysis. So how does DAP.LIVE get its phishing and data feeds?
So currently we have two providers that we use for phishing. We have the APWG, which is the Anti-Phishing Working Group, and we have OpenFish. Both those data streams come in the same way in that we get data from them approximately every sort of 10 or 15 minutes. So it's quite real time and quite up to date. Within that data is usually a report time, which is key to measuring at the point at which a phishing attack has been reported to that particular provider. Unfortunately, with these providers, we don't get any feedback after the fact. So we have no idea as to when a problem has been resolved, if indeed it was resolved by the hosting provider for that particular domain or not. So that's part of the reason why we want to use DAP.LIVE and other data in the system to help us to make sense of the data we're getting from those phishing providers.
Okay, that's great. And what are the key data does DAP.LIVE contain that will help us measure and detect these attacks?
So there are two basic bits of information that are really helpful in determining the sort of rates of detection and also resolution times. The first of which is really core website registration data. So one metric you can use to measure sort of the time between a domain being registered, which is the creation date, as you can see here and on the screen before us. Part of the core data we collect for a domain is very much the creation date, which comes from whois. And that's one. And the second metric that's of interest really is what we call passive DNS data. And that's very useful because passive DNS data is obtained by actually inspecting traffic on the internet and looking at when different sort of particular URLs are accessed at different times. So from the passive data, we can work out when, for example, a given host name, such as an example here is our own web services.dnsrf.org, when that host name has become available on the internet. And in some ways, when a host becoming available is much more useful than a domain being registered, as we'll see that in the data later on, because of course that tells when that particular host, that particular URL was actually routing on the internet. So that's a very key data source for us, and we get that data from Farsight at the moment. So we'll talk about how that joins in a minute.
That's great, Mark. Thanks for that. So, putting all this together, how can we use the tools in DAP.LIVE to actually measure detection and resolution times for phishing?
Well, the great thing about DAP.LIVE platform is it provides rich analytical tools which allow us to join data together and produce combined data sets from data sets that we have existing within the system. So as we can see on the diagram here in front of us, we start with a primary data set, which in this case is the combined phishing data that we're interested in, and we're going to talk about how we've derived that data shortly. That has a key piece of information which we want, which is the time that phishing incident was detected. But we want to join that data to other data we have available in the platform. So first of all, we join to the whois data as mentioned. That gives us the creation date for the underlying domain name, which is one way of measuring sort of detection times from a creation of a domain. And the other important set we want to join, as we mentioned, is the passive DNS data. As we join that, and the difference between those two is that we can join the whois data on domain name only. With passive DNS, we can go even further and join it on the host name, which is much more specific. As we know, many phishing attacks are not based upon just domain names, they're based upon using subdomains of domain names. So that's actually much more effective to actually look at the phishing passive DNS data for a particular host name. As you can see at the bottom of this screen here, we've ended up with a combined data set, which we've got data for the discovery times for either APWG or for OpenFish, as well as the created date and the passive observations. And we actually collect both the first time we've seen an observation and the last time we've seen an observation for a given host name, because that will be important in our analysis going forwards. So to go to the next screen, if we can, we'll see there that we've actually got some output from there now, and you can see that we've ended up with some quite interesting data here. What we've chosen to report on is a 5-day window from 90 days ago to give us a sense of how we can measure how quickly things have not only been observed, but also how quickly they've been taken down within that period. So at the top, we can see that we've got some interesting metrics. We've got the time taken from a domain being created to when it was first seen in passive DNS. And you can see that that can be often very quick if a domain's made live straight away. The fastest time there is 12 minutes. That's not unexpected in some ways. And sometimes it can be a very long time if a domain name has been registered but not actually been activated at that point. Then looking to the next stage, we then look at how fast it goes from being spotted by passive DNS to being seen in phishing. And this is where the picture gets very interesting, because we can see that some of our providers for some domains are extremely fast. We can see that in fact there was a phishing incident detected within 6 minutes of it appearing on a passive DNS stream, which implies a level of responsiveness there. Obviously there's an average there which is much less, but again, it's not always the case that phishing attacks are created on even on subdomains immediately. So we expect to see a range of times there. Obviously, the create to phishing is less interesting in some ways. I mean, it is true that some domains are registered for the very particular use of creating a phishing attack immediately. Yeah. And we can see there, for example, we've got one domain that was created and within 14 hours was detected for phishing. So that's very fast. Typically, it's not the case, and people will use often subdomains. And we often find in our industry that there are lots of what we call super spreader domains, where people create a domain name and then attach lots of subdomains at different points in time to use for phishing. So actually the creation date of the domain is less important than what we see as the passive DNS of the subdomain. And finally, the last measurement we have at the end there is how long from the phishing attack spotted to the last time we saw it in passive DNS, which is an indicator to some extent of perhaps it's been taken down. So we're looking at looking to see whether when we last saw something in passive DNS. And the charts below give you a bit of a breakdown of that as well. So you can see that, as mentioned, the creation date of a domain has, it's fairly not a particularly good indicator, except most of the domains in our sample set here were more than 30 days old when they were first detected for phishing, and that's not unexpected. There's one example where there was done within much quicker than that. However, in terms of the passive DNS measurements, you can see that the picture's a bit different there. There's many more domains are spotted within 7 days of being activated at the subdomain level and picked up as phishing attacks. And then more interestingly, at the end there, you can see the tail there at the end. Actually, there are a number of domains that are captured within the first few days and actually taken down very quickly. And we can see there were actually 5 phishing attacks which were taken down almost on the same day as they were spotted. So hopefully that gives you a sense of the way in which you can take some data that's come from phishing reports and analyze it to determine how quickly those different providers are detecting abuse, and also how quickly does in rough terms those abuse reports are being resolved and the subdomains are being removed from the internet. So thank you.
Brilliant, thank you, Mark. That's fascinating. Thanks for illustrating the data that's available on the DAP and also the different tools that you have available to be able to make those types of analysis. That's excellent. If you found this video useful, we have a number of other blogs and guides on our website, dnsrf.org, which I'd encourage you to go and check out, because there are some really great blogs on phishing and other abuse metrics. So thanks for watching.